What is up? Welcome back to the channel. So as you can see behind me here, we got the TJ back in the shop today. So this is kind of a continuation of just getting this thing roadworthy, just kind of doing some updates to it. And then down the road, we'll kind of do some of the more extreme stuff like a long arm lift and everything like that. But like I said, right now, kind of just focusing on getting this thing comfortable. He's got some new seats in it, kind of updated the interior, rhino line the bottom. And then on the exterior, we've done new U-joints on the front and we replaced the hubs on the front. So, and in that process, we might have caused what we're going to be working on today, but we're going to have to replace the axle seals on the front axle. Eventually, we do actually have to do the rear as well because we got a slight leak in the rear, but the one in the front's a little worse. So that's what we're going to knock out today. Not a whole lot to it. So let's check out what we got over here. So as you can see here, we got our fluid, our seals, and then some gasket makers. So not a whole lot to it. This little project up here, you'll see that in a video coming up here pretty soon, the ultimate air system on the Gladiator. So make sure you like and subscribe if you want to check out that video for that stuff. But for today, that's all we've got. It's just a few parts and some oil. Unfortunately though, this is a pretty big job. So we actually have to pull the axle shafts, pull the carrier out, the locker, and get into that pumpkin to knock these seals out and put in the new ones because these seals are internal inside of that pumpkin. So it's a pretty big job, but we'll knock it out today. It should take a couple hours. Since we've already had all this stuff broken loose, should break loose pretty easy for us. And hopefully we can just get a good quick video for you on how to replace your front axle seals. And then down the road, like I said, we'll do those rear axle seals and I'll get you a video out on that as well. The rear is much easier, although you do need a shop press for it. But anyway, that's coming up later. For now, let's get started. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing jacked up, get it on some jack stands, and then we're gonna drain that fluid and get the tires pulled off. All right, so to drain the differential, we'll go ahead and pull all these bolts. We're gonna leave the top one in, just kind of snug, and then that way we can pry this off and drain it without the cover falling off and all the fluid coming out at once and making a huge mess. One thing I like to do as soon as you get the cover off or you pull the fill plug, there's a magnet on the back of the fill plug. You just want to check that. Make sure that there's no big chunks. You're going to have metal shavings, but everything on this one's real fine. So it kind of just shows that our differential is in good shape, that there's no major damage or anything like that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and spray this out with some brake clean and kind of get it cleaned up a little bit, and then we'll have this draining while we go and pull our axle shafts. All right, next up, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and pull our brake calipers, get those hung up out of the way. And then on the back here, you've got 3 of these bolts. See if I can point to them here. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take all those off, and then we'll remove the hub and the axle assembly as one piece. Once you pull the brake caliper, you will be able to pull your brake rotor off. So we'll get the brake caliper, brake rotor, and then we'll do those 3 bolts and pull the axle shaft and hub assembly out as one piece. Okay, so now we are ready to go ahead and pull our axle shaft out. So for us, since we've already done hubs on this and we've already done U-joints on this, this has been on and off a few times. So it should break loose pretty easy for us. If it's stuck, you might have some issues getting it off. But even our first time doing any work on this, it wasn't really that bad. You just kind of want to make a note of where your dust shield is for your brakes. We won't be pulling that off, so it's just going to stay on. So we'll know exactly where it goes back. If you're doing other work like U-joints or something like that, just kind of make a note of it so that way you put it back on the right way. But this will just come out, the hub and everything, axle shaft will come out as one assembly. All right, so that's it on this side, and you can see here, this is the side that we're having issues with. A lot of fluid coming out of this passenger side axle shaft. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be fixing today. No more mess under here. We'll clean all this up with some brake clean before we throw everything back together. And then that way we can keep an eye on it, make sure that nothing's leaking anymore, but we should be good after we get these axle seals replaced. Okay, came over to the driver's side. We got our hub and axle shaft assembly pulled out on the driver's side. Now, the next thing we need to do is, as you can see, our tie rod is right in the way of getting our carrier out. So we'll go ahead, this had a cotter pin in it. We already got the cotter pin out. We'll go ahead and pull this nut off, get our tie rod out of the way, and then we'll probably just zip tie it up out of the way. That way we've got room to work on our carrier. Okay, so we're ready to pull our carrier out. First thing that we need to do before we start pulling any bolts or anything like that is we need to mark our caps. Now these are the same size, but they need to go back on a specific way, as far as this one needs to go on the right, this one needs to go on the left, this needs to be the top of this one, and this needs to be the top of this one. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to, I'm going to put a couple of marks on here. So we'll do a left and a right one on this, and then I'll go over to our pumpkin itself and do a left and right here, and do both at the bottom, and I'll do the same thing over here, except for I'll go one on top, one on bottom. Anyway, I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so it's not a big mark here, but this way you know kind of where everything's going back. So on the left side here, you can see I've got a dot up top, dot down low, and then the same thing over here. So now I know, you know, this one up and down dot goes to the left side, and then I've got the top and the top marked. So now on this side, I did left and right. You can see left and right there, and then you might not be able to see it as well, but I've got left and right here, and then this is at the bottom of this one. Anyway, I marked bottom here, they're in line. So now I know exactly how to put these caps back on. Okay, one thing to note here, whenever you're pulling your ring bolts, the washers will go back on the driver's side. If you notice, you have a little plate here. This is for your locker assembly. That's why you need the washers on that side, so you don't damage this plate. And then this side doesn't have any washers. It's just the bolts on the passenger side. Okay, so now that we got all of our bolts out, and I went ahead and pulled this carrier cap off on this side, on the passenger side. I went ahead and threw one bolt back in on the driver's side, since I'm gonna be messing with it a little bit. I don't want this, sometimes on an older vehicle, it might be, you might have a little less preload on your carrier, so I don't want that falling out. We need to go ahead and get this airline removed. So as you can see here, there's a little metal retaining clip right there that you can squeeze with a pair of needle nose, slide up out of the way, and then you should just be able to get this rubber hose up and off, just like that. So just kind of want to make sure whenever we're pulling this out that we don't damage that, it doesn't get caught on anything, because it's just going to kind of be chilling right there while we pull this carrier out. So next thing I'll do, I'll go ahead and get this bolt out. We can't get this carrier cap off on the driver's side because it's underneath our locker plate. So all that's going to have to come out as one assembly. And then one thing I want to show you is, you can see here, so these are our shims that are in here. And you should have one, yeah, so we got one on both sides. You can kind of see that one right there. Pretty thick shims. I'm pretty sure that's the shim. We'll know for sure once we get this pulled out. You want to make sure, it is very important that those stay on the side that they're supposed to be on. So they're going to come out with the carrier. As we pull this carrier, both these shims are going to come out with it. You just want to make sure that the shim that's on the passenger side stays on the passenger side whenever you reinstall this. What that does is it moves your carrier left and right, which is going to adjust your backlash of this. It's going to adjust, well, it's not going to adjust your preload of the carrier because we're using the same size of shims, but it is going to, if we put them on the wrong sides, it's going to move our carrier left and right, which is going to change the way the pinion lines up with the teeth. So the teeth on the pinion and the teeth on our ring gear, they won't line up properly. They won't contact properly if you don't put these shims back in the right way. So it's just very important. Just make sure as you're pulling this, you know, take your time, go slow with it, and make sure you maintain control of these shims and you know which side is which. Okay, so I just threw a 19 wrench on our ring gear bolt, just a quick little sharp, just jerk down. And so now it's loose. So now as I'm coming out, like again, I just want to make sure that that hose is good. And I want to make sure I control these shims, which neither shim is coming out with the carrier. So they're going to fall probably down into the axle. So I just want to go real slow and see if I can grab these shims. Okay, so I've got the shim on the passenger side. Our hose is still not caught on anything. And it looks like our shim on the driver's side is kind of stuck to the axle tube. So now we've got the carrier. I'm going to take it over to the bench and then we'll get this thing cleaned up. All right, so next up we'll go ahead and get our seals out. So as you can see here, this is our seal inside of here. Now this one doesn't appear to be damaged, but this is the side that was leaking for us. And there is no other seals. So it's leaking somewhere. Maybe once we get it out, we can take a better look at it. But and then you have the same thing on the driver's side over here, the seal pressed in. And since we're in here, obviously we're replacing both, even though this side wasn't leaking. So we'll go ahead and do that next. Okay, so for this, I'm on the outside. This is the passenger side, the long side. So this is just a piece of tubing that I had laying around. Obviously a bit long because I'm already to the seal in there. So all you should have to do to knock this out is just slide it in there. You'll feel that seal hit and then just knock it out just like that. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Nah, I think you'll be fine. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is go ahead and get all this cleaned up. You can see in there, you know, kind of got a little bit of dirt and debris especially from the axle shaft. Pretty nasty in there. So we're gonna clean this whole thing out. Make sure that where your ring caps or your bearing caps sit in here, we'll make sure that that's nice and clean. We'll just clean everything up, get it all nice and clean before we press in our new seals. Okay, so we got our carrier cleaned up. Went ahead and cleaned the surface here with a wire brush, got everything all nice and ready for our cover whenever we're ready to put that back on. So these are our new seals. Turns out our old seals were not damaged, but it's pretty easy to tell looking at them, one next to, or the new one compared to the old one, that the rubber was just worn out. And so the opening on this new one is a lot smaller than on our old one. And that's all it was. So we didn't actually damage it whenever we did the hubs, you know, pulling the axle shafts in and out. It was just old. So that rubber kind of had opened up more and more over time and it wasn't holding the oil in anymore. So now there's a few ways to get our new seals pressed in. The way that we're gonna do it is I have a tool from Yukon. I don't remember now how much this cost, but this basically, you know, we slide our seal on here, we'll put it in there and then you just use a wrench and you just slowly press it in on each side. There's other ways to do this. You can do a couple of sockets tied together, a socket that fits here, so whatever size this is, and put a socket on this and then just put a whole bunch of extensions going out each side of the axle shaft. And you can do it that way, just slightly, you know, you'll have to obviously have a helper, but you can tap it in on each side doing it that way. But like I said, this is the easier way. I don't remember how much this was. Pretty simple tool here, but this is the way that we're gonna do it and makes it a lot easier. So, all right, let's get these new seals pressed in. Okay, so now we got the new seals pressed in, and you do want to make sure just to re-clean this after the fact. So sometimes whenever you're driving those in, you might get just some real fine metal shavings. Obviously you want to make sure that all that comes out, make sure it's nice and clean, and make sure that they're fully seated. So we've got them fully seated on both sides. You can see the other side fully seated, all cleaned up. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add some high temperature bearing grease. I'll show you on this side, a little easier. So all this rubber right here will come in contact with your axle shaft. So as you know, you're driving and that's spinning, you're gonna have some friction here. So to make your seals last longer, I'm gonna add just some high temp grease to both of these seals, get that rubber nice and coated in some high temp grease, and it'll prolong the life of these seals. Okay, so now we have our seals all greased up. We're ready to put our carrier back in. Now on the TJ Rubicons, you have this back here, and you can kind of see I've already got my little makeshift tool. This is for your light on your dash from what my understanding is. So you have to, whenever we reinstall this needs to be out. I don't know how well you can tell. It goes in and out there. So when we go to reinstall, this needs to be pulled out. And what that'll do, again, is it'll just make sure that our lights on our dash are working properly. It'll show us when we're in four-wheel drive. So the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna use this. It's just a little bitty dowel rod, which I know it's kind of blurry on the camera there, with some wire attached to it. So I'm going to pull that out and slide this in. It's really hard to get a good video on that, but let me get it back up in there and I'll kind of show you what we got. Okay, so now as you can see, that dowel is up in there and I've got my wire ran up and tucked up out of the way. So now whenever we set the carrier in, nothing's gonna be in the way, and then I can pull our wire and fish that dowel back out. And now I do have a little bit of play left. I mean, maybe a 1/16 of an inch there, or an 1/8 of an inch, it can still come further out, but that should be far enough out for us for it to catch where it needs to catch, and everything should work fine. So now next we're ready to go ahead and get our carrier back in. So when we do this, obviously, like I said, the shims are super important. They might look identical, but they could be, 1/1000th of an inch off, and from one side to the other, and that can change your backlash and everything. So you want to make sure that your shims are going back in on the same side, and we'll get this carrier back up, rotate it into place, make sure our shims are in. I'll just set the camera down and kind of just show you what we're going to do, and then I'll talk about it afterwards. So now on our carrier, if I can get it all the way out there where you can see it, I did make sure that these surfaces on the edge here, I know it's just in the bottom of the screen there, but this thing's heavy and I can't get it that far out there. So I did make sure that all these surfaces on the edges were clean, and also inside of here, kind of a lot of just, kind of crud. Just kind of clean that up. I did not soak the carrier in brake cleaner or anything. It was just a light coat, just kind of getting some of that sludge and some of that debris off of the ends, especially because you want, like I said, you want, these are all very tight tolerances, and you want to make sure that everything goes on properly. So now I've got my shims on both sides, and I did put just a slight marking on there, so a D in Sharpie. Even though I kept them separate, I know which one was which, I went ahead and marked them too, just in case, because you never know. So I put a D for Delta driver side on this side, and then a P on the other one. And that way it's just a little extra marking on there, just so I'm just 100% sure I'm putting them back in the right way. So now we'll get these up and in. Again, you'll want to make sure that this rubber hose kind of stays out of the way, and then you'll want to watch for that wooden dowel rod as well. Careful, you're gonna pull my. Not a whole lot of preload. Yeah. Okay, so that actually went in really well. I mean, this Jeep's got a decent amount of miles on it. So our carrier preload isn't near as tight as, when it was new, obviously. So we're up and in. Both shims are fully seated. Actually, I take that back. This one is not. So I'm gonna grab my shim driver on this passenger side, driver side, and I'm just gonna tap that in just a little bit more because it doesn't look like it's quite seated all the way. Our passenger side is fully seated. Everything looks great on that side. So again, whenever I reinstall my bearing caps, obviously make sure that they're nice and clean. And then I'm looking for my markings. Here's my two little punch marks, and I'm gonna make sure that those go on right where they're supposed to. All right, and then now also, before I get too far, I'm gonna go ahead and try to fish out this dowel. That way, in case I do have to readjust and redo this, I'm not too far ahead. So we'll go ahead and fish out that dowel. No problem. And then we'll get our bolts in. You wanna make sure that your hose here for your air locker, we'll go ahead and slide it on. Nice and easy. And then this little retaining bracket will go through that bolt. All right, so now I'm gonna tap that shim in just a little bit, which these are from Yukon as well. Done a few re-gears now, and these tools make everything so much easier. Just making sure I got the right one. No problem, it's bottomed out. I'll just check this one. Oh yeah, it's bottomed out. All right, so now we're ready to snug up these bolts, and then we'll torque them down. Okay, so now we got them torqued to spec. So for if you have a Dana 30 front axle, it's 45 foot-pounds. On the Dana 44s, it should be 80 foot-pounds. So we went ahead and went to 80. And then you just wanna make sure that your hose is fully seated and that you get this little ring back down over kind of that nipple there so that your hose will stay on and secure. All right, so now we've got everything cleaned up. This surface is ready for us to go ahead and put back on our differential cover. After that, we'll go ahead and button everything up on the ends, and then we'll throw our fluid in last. Okay, so with this, I'm not going to torque these yet. I just barely snugged them up until I saw our gasket maker coming out. I'm gonna let that set for an hour, and then I'm gonna torque it down. That way we don't squeeze it all out. And then in the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and reassemble the outsides. All right, now on reassembly, we're about to slide the axle shaft back in. Some people will put grease on the end of their axle shaft. I'm not gonna do that. I got plenty of grease on that seal in there. But what you do wanna do is whenever you're putting this in, you want to, well, first, you don't wanna drag the end of your shaft on the bottom of your axle tube, because that's where you'll get some dirt and sediment and stuff, and you don't wanna push that into your carrier. So you wanna try to keep that up, and then as you're going in, especially once you get to that sill, move my hand in here, is you want to go real easy, and you want to, so you can hear there, the axle shaft is not on the bottom. So once you get to that sill, it gets kind of hard. I might have already got it. Is you want to pick it up, and there we go. So it just slipped in, and now we're good. It's through that sill without damaging it. You don't want to just run it right into that sill that we just replaced. So, all right. So now we're good now. We'll just get everything lined back up and bolted back up. All right, so that is it for this video. Now we are still waiting for the gasket to dry a little bit more, and then we'll finish torquing that differential cover. We'll get our drain plug and our fill plug put back in and cleaned up a little bit more. Then we'll top it off on fluid, drive it for a bit, and then we'll recheck those fluid levels, just make sure everything's good in there. But that's it for this job. Like I said, a little bit bigger job than probably what most people want to do. But on these older TJs, you know, this is an 03, coming up on what, 21, 22 years old. Yeah, you're gonna start having stuff like that go out. I couldn't tell if those had ever been changed, but they definitely needed it. So hopefully this video will help you out, and you can probably just knock this out yourself. It's really not that hard as long as you got a few tools and some time to work on it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.